So where do the Celtics stand right now after 5 games? We're going to have that conversation with Keith Smith right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
So hype right now. Anything's possible. I'm on mama. I'm on my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Rain and Jay's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global with it, got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, this the best way. Melly.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show your first listen every day. Locked On Celtics is free and available across all platforms. New episodes Monday through Friday on your podcast, on YouTube. You can get every episode at LockedOnCeltics.com. I am John Karalis. I cover the team for Boston Sports Journal, and I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars that you can pick up anywhere books are sold. Today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. Today, I'm bringing in Keith Smith from Celtics Blog, from Spot Track, for an extended conversation after 5 games here. It's been a week of Celtics basketball, and this has really been super frustrating. If you listen to yesterday's podcast, you'll get that sense from me. And so I wanted to bring in another perspective. So we get into Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, Marcus Smart, all of that, and where the team is right now. So here's my conversation with Keith Smith. All right, Keith, thanks for hopping back onto the podcast. Appreciate you coming back. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, well, you're doing good. I'm doing good. Celtics are not doing good. They are a bit of a mess. Yeah, I'll just throw this out at you. Felt like preseason, all leading up to the regular season, everything was kind of cool. The vibes were great. Everybody was just like, "Hey, this is the best," which is every preseason everywhere.
Sure.
But once the regular season started, it felt like the NBA kicked it into another gear. Things started moving faster, and all of a sudden the Celtics were like, whoa, taken aback by this. And I think that's impacted the team. I think it's impacted their style of play. I think it's impacted guys off the bench. And this, for the first 5 games here, have been kind of a shock to these guys.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the COVID absences of Jaylen Brown and Al Horford at the end of the preseason probably didn't help. Then you come right in. That double overtime loss to the Knicks, even the most easily angered Celtics fans that I know were like, hey, it's the first game of the season. What a great game. Tip your cap, what a fun game that was. It was the next one that kind of got them.
Right.
The home opener with Toronto that really got people upset. And then had a couple people kind of, whatever on the Houston win because Houston's not very good and it was a closer game than I think they thought it should have been. Hornets win, I think, got people feeling a little bit better. And then last night with the Wizards, not good. And just everybody was unhappy. And I think what is most disappointing for most folks, and I can say for me personally, is we're back to having the exact same conversations we had a million times last season about effort and intensity and focus and all the things that you really don't want to have to be talking about a week into the season.
Oh, it's so brutal. That's the thing that really just, chaps me the most, because that is something. When Al Horford, like even your dog doesn't like it. When the
Sorry about that.
Don't worry about that at all. Look. If I was the dog, I'd be pissed off about the Celtics too right now. And it is. It's.
We do have a puppy named Tatum, so there
you go. So he probably gives effort about 75% of the time.
Yeah.
So. All right. So being fair here, like I think there's a bit of we've talked about preseason extends into the regular season for the Celtics. So you have an element of these guys are learning and they're switching everything, and the switching everything has really been tough. And they're not switching everything the entire game, but Ime has said we're switching everything a lot to kind of get these guys used to it, and then we're throwing some other stuff in. So they certainly weren't switching everything all the time. However, there are a fair amount of times when you find Al Horford and Robert Williams out on the perimeter, and shots are going up, and that's impacting the rebounding, and that's impacting the level of defense. And that is in turn, I think, crumbling some of the mental sharpness of the team, because you're thinking, your reacting is slower. You're making mistakes out there, and those get frustrating. And guys are frustrated with each other. You see guys pointing all the time, and I think that all works to kind of erode the confidence of these guys. And then you add in all the other stuff. So I honestly, Keith, I do think that this is a combination of things, like unfair situation, as far as judging the team, and these guys not really putting in the effort, the extra effort necessary to overcome that.
Yeah, for me, I don't get overly worked up over much until we get to around Christmas. I learned a long time ago that's generally how teams tend to think about it. It's usually slightly before that. It's about when that early trade window opens in mid-December, when the guys who signed over the summer are eligible to be traded. That's when you start to say, all right, well, what do we maybe have? What do we need? You're in about a 2-month window before the trade deadline at that point, generally. So you're kind of working there to see, all right, where are we at? What do we need to do to improve this team? How do we evaluate ourselves? So I try not to get too caught up in, especially with a team that either has a new coach or major personnel changes. Celtics kind of have both. I know some of the new faces aren't necessarily playing a lot, but you are incorporating new guys in, and clearly Ime Udoka is changing things. I think the offense, I expected it to be bumpy early. He's trying to introduce a lot of ball and player movement. That's going to come with turnovers. That's going to come with some messiness at times, and that's not the end of the world. It, to me, is Al Horford last night, just his body language and demeanor after the game kind of summed it up, of just being extremely discouraged, almost felt like he was defeated. He's not a real loud guy to begin with, but he was so soft-spoken and quiet and almost just like despondent is almost the best way I can describe it. Like I never seen him like that. And I think for him, it's got to be, he was clearly fired up to come back to Boston and so excited. And then his early season gets kind of derailed with the positive COVID test. Then he's back and things are starting to look good. And now they're not, and all that. And I think what's happening is, it isn't any one thing. I do think the effort thing is very high on the list. I would probably put it number 1 on the list, because I think all the other things, if you just played a little harder, you could start to get around. But I think what happens is, especially, let's talk about what you mentioned with the rebounding and switching bigs out to the perimeter. I have always felt there's nothing more deflating for a team than to play really good defense through an entire possession and not come away with the rebound, and the other team gets it, because you just shoulder slump, heads go down, and it just falls apart. And that one of the late game possessions, they did a great job locking in on everybody. Kuzma comes in, tips the ball back out. Everybody collectively on the sideline and on the floor, you could just see them kind of deflate. And then Bradley Beal drives for a bucket, and the game was effectively over. And that is, there's some schematic stuff in there too. But I go back to, that's a rebound you have to have. You've got to go to those boards and go get it. And it's not that these guys are incapable, because in the Houston game, we saw Peyton Pritchard twice box out Christian Wood, who has easily almost a foot on Peyton Pritchard, and he boxed him out, pushed him out of the paint, and Boston corralled the rebound both times. So it's not that it can't be done, it's just not being done. And that starts to add into why is that happening? What are all these reasons? And again, I don't think there's any silver bullet here. I just think a lot of just things aren't getting done.
I take my cue from the team, the attitude, the mentality there that you see, the stuff I see in the court, the stuff that they say afterwards, especially like you said, the Al Horford thing. The Al Horford availability after the game really kind of is charting my course of the last podcast and this podcast, because as I said yesterday, and I wrote on Boston Sports Journal, I've covered Al long enough to have heard him after losses that I thought were horrible losses, and he'd sit there and say, "Hey, we made these mistakes. We're going to watch some film. We're going to get together. We got to do a better job. Blah blah blah." Basically, professional canned answers. That's what Al Horford has been the entirety of his career. Last night felt like it was a loss in game 4, down 2-1 in a playoff series, and we're here in game 5. That to me really was the biggest indication that Horford of all people came out and was disappointed dad. I joked around saying I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Like, that felt, when Horford comes out and talks like that, I was like, okay, now there's something wrong here. Much more with Keith coming up in just a few minutes, including more on Jayson Tatum and that whole experience, especially in that game there against the Wizards, and how he got caught up in a lot of things, I think. First, let's talk about McDonald's, which has been proudly serving communities since 1965. It's been more than a place to get tasty, affordable food. Everybody knows where the McDonald's is in town, so it's a great meeting spot. You can go and say, hey, meet me at the McDonald's. We'll grab a bite, and then we'll go to wherever we're going. It's a place where you can go, and if you just need to do some work. Sometimes I like to grab my laptop and leave my apartment instead of sitting here and working in the same spot every day. Go to someplace new. McDonald's definitely has dependable Wi-Fi, and you can go and you can have some French fries, or you can have a coffee or whatever, and sit there and do your work. It's a place that teammates, competitors, home teams, away teams, you can see those teams all in at McDonald's. They come to recharge, have something after a game. You can go to McDonald's right now, refuel, reconnect, make sure that you're bringing some friends and enjoying this. Like, they do birthday parties apparently now. Which is great. I mean, that's fun. You can have the kids' birthday parties. There's a McDonald's near me with a big slide into the ball pit, which is like the whole thing is a big slide, which is kind of cool. Kind of makes me want to be a kid again. So head on over to McDonald's and check it out. Grab some of your favorites. Like I said, my mom always loved the filet of fish, which made me like the filet of fish. So check it out. McDonald's. I'm loving it. Hey, thank you once again for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. How about making your second listen every day, the Locked On NBA podcast, which I host on Wednesdays with Jake Madison of Locked On Pelicans. We've got rotating hosts Monday through Friday. So want to catch up on the league in full, in general, Locked On NBA, everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Now let's continue the conversation to these very frustrating Boston Celtics with Keith Smith. Now I'm just focused so much on the core of this team. Jaylen, Jayson, Marcus Smart, especially those guys. And I don't want to turn this into a Jaylen Brown thing, because I don't know what's bothering him. Mm-hmm. But we have him and we've got Tatum as your two main guys. I think Tatum in the game got way too caught up in the emotions of the game. Thought he got way too caught up in the officiating. When he got that tech, he was working that official 2 or 3 trips down the floor to get that.
Yeah, he built up to it. Yeah, and he earned that one.
That one was like, and the ref, I felt like, was like, don't make me do it. And
yep.
No, I'm gonna make you do it. And so you got that, and I feel like Jayson, I don't know if he got caught up in dueling Bradley Beal, if he wanted to, whatever, but he's on one side, he got caught up in the hero ball. When we heard, hey, hero ball after the game, that was Jayson. On the other side, there was the guys are going, by and getting layups and someone standing on the one side of the lane. I feel like that was more geared towards Jaylen, where Jaylen, I don't know if it's COVID that's got got him slowed down and he can't recover after a game like the one in Charlotte, or if it's something else, but very clearly something is going on. Keith, I tried to rewatch this game from last night before you shot me the message and said, I'm ready to go. I was on the first 5 minutes of the game. I couldn't get past it because there were 3 or 4 immediate breakdowns, all involving Jaylen in some form right away. And I was like, God, what is going on with this guy? I was ready to be like, here comes Jaylen's all NBA season.
Yep.
And again, I don't want to get too hard on Jaylen because he is coming back from COVID and maybe he is taking longer to recover. But it really, I got to lean back on hey, if you're out there and you got to play. If you can't concentrate and you can't focus, then you're better off not playing or asking out and playing shorter stints or something.
Yeah. I had people say, is his knee maybe worse than we know? And maybe it could be. I don't know. But if it is, then that's irresponsible on everybody's part, because if it's that bad that he can't really be the player he should be, then the team should know and notice that, whether it be the trainers, the medical staff, the coaching staff, whoever it is, and they should not have him out there. Or he needs to be the one to say, hey, I can't go. It's just, and that's not me by any means saying that he's weak and, forget him or anything like that. No, that's the smart play. There's still, after last night's game, there's 77 games to go. It's not, nobody plays 82 games anymore, right? When we were growing up as kids, that was like playing less than 70 games was considered to be a massively, injury marred season. And that's just not how it is anymore. It's, playing 70 games is considered to be basically have been fully available for the year. So if that's what it is, then sit out. And no one's going to look down on you for it. It's not, because it's not like Jaylen has this, 7-year history of playing in 40 games a year or anything like that. That would be a different story and we'd have a different conversation. But I'm with you. He didn't look connected defensively. I don't want to put all that on him because a lot of them don't look connected defensively. It looks like a mess a lot of the time. And I think Horford and Rob are bailing guys out more than they should have to this early in the season, just with making plays, whether it be on the perimeter or then recovery plays inside the paint. They've both been pretty solid with those kind of things. I'm with you with Tatum. I tweeted this morning, the article I put up on Celtics blog, the cover photo is he's doing this.
Yeah.
And I said, when I see that, when I think Jayson Tatum now, that's starting to become the image that comes into my mind because it's just so often.
Be like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. If he was the NBA logo, just be him. Like, come on.
Right. Can I interrupt you to
sure.
add to your point for a second? Not only was that photo available, there were multiple versions of that photo available.
Yeah.
That's how often he was complaining.
Yeah, and it's not multiple versions of the same photo where it's different. 19 different angles. He did it that much throughout the game. And I do think I noticed early on there were 2 plays. I want to say they both were in the first quarter. I think one was in Tatum's first stint, one was when he came back in the game, where he got Bradley Beal on a switch because Beal does not guard him straight up. They primarily had KCP on Tatum with Kuzma mixing in quite a bit. He got Beal on the switch, and I don't know, Robert Williams could have been standing under the basket wide open with flashing lights on him. He wasn't getting the ball. Tatum was going to go against Beal, and I get it. That's your buddy. You want to bust him. You want to go. You feel like you can score on him. But I think Washington also kind of knew that and was content with, hey, this will take them out of whatever they're trying to run. It kind of goes back to, I always think about when Brad Stevens was content to let teams post up Isaiah Thomas because, cool, post up IT with your 6'2" point guard who's never played in the post in his life. Right. Like, that's not an offense you run. Like dude, do that. So, hey, we'll live with it. And then I think the complaining from Tatum is I think he gets caught up emotionally, especially in these games against Bradley Beal. Of it's not coming from a bad place per se. He just wants to win, beat his guy, score, all those things. And when it's not happening, it turns into a bad place because I know some people have been like, well, you need to give me the actual numbers, how many times he complains and they get scored on. It's like, I mean, I guess I could go back through the entire game and do it, but it's not about that. Cause sometimes he's not getting back and his team's having to take a foul. Other times he's just not getting back, or they're having to work harder because he's not getting back because he's keeping up a running dialogue. And then the last part on that part with Tatum is you're not doing yourself any favors. And I really think he came in and starting in year 2, he got this rep of this guy cries a lot. And we know the officials are, no, not going there. And now people will say, what about James Harden? What about, XYZ, LeBron James and all those things? Yes, but they didn't start doing that stuff in year 1 and 2. That started a little later in their career when they built up a rep of they go to the basket hard, they take a beating, we're going to reward that kind of play. And we see Tatum doesn't always necessarily do that. Now, did they miss calls? 100%. The one where Kuzma pushed him in the back late in the game. And everybody who said on Twitter and other places of it was just a nudge. When you're in the air, a nudge is enough to throw you off on a layup. I don't like that's, come on. I wasn't even good, and I know that. My air was about 2 sheets of paper, and I knew if I got bumped, it was going to throw me off. So I just, those are the things that are frustrating me with those two guys. And I look at it as it's 2 very different situations, but these are the situations where these are your best players. They need to be the ones who, when we're in year 2 of the effort, intensity, focus conversation, they need to be the 2 that are leading the way there. You can't be relying on an often injured guy in Marcus Smart, who has his own other issues that we'll probably talk about in a minute, or even Al Horford, who's kind of new back to the team again after having left, and those kind of things. Those are you can't be necessarily looking at those 2 to provide you all your leadership. It's got to come from your 2 best players. And I get it. They're not necessarily super loud guys, and those kind of things. They tend to be a little bit more quiet, but then at least lead by example. And that's not happening either.
Yeah, that's it's still spotty. And again, I do want to be fair. I want to be fair because I don't want this just to become a, just trashing these guys.
Yeah.
There is like, Jayson Tatum probably, I tweeted out when he was in the air, like, it looked like he was going up for a dunk and he kind of got caught in the middle. I was on the opposite side of the court in the arena. Like, you miss things.
Sure.
I didn't see him get pushed, but you know what? There were only 2 officials out there, right?
By then there was 3.
Were there
They'd
3?
gotten the 3rd official back out there.
One,
I think.
All right. So I mean,
but stuff gets missed. I mean, it happens. It's not,
right.
Kuzma, quite frankly, did something that we know a lot of teams teach guys is get them low on their hip because it's hard to see. Yeah. If you're going to get them low on the hip because it's hard to see. This was not, when I say Kuzma pushed him, Kuzma didn't straight arm him in the middle of his back and like send him, sprawling. It was a little nudge on the hip, just enough to throw him off as he got by him. And that's, where it is. And I want to say too, I'm with you. I tweeted this today. We're not supposed to have favorites, but we all do for various reasons. And Jayson Tatum is one of my favorite players in the league. I love his game. He is, when his jump shot is working, it's so aesthetically pleasing. Like, there's really, now that he's learning how to pass, there's just not things, he can do everything on the court. It's just, so good. So when I say this, it's coming from a place of, I know there's better. So that's what for me is I want that more out of him. I was the same way with you. I said to a lot of people, I said, I think Tatum's going to vault into MVP consideration this year. And I think Jaylen Brown's going to be an all-NBA. And that's why he was very high on the team coming into the season. And yeah, it's 5 games in. I'm not, let's get silly about this.
Right.
I guess my single biggest thing is we're having the same conversations that we had last year. That's what I can't do. Again, is if we're having the same conversations, that's what the issue is. It's not, if this was all about, boy, Ime's rotations are weird and the switching defense stinks and this offensive scheme's not getting worked out, I would say, guys, deal with it. Talk to me at Thanksgiving.
Right.
And we'll see, what improvement has been made from there. Even if the conversation was, wow, Al Horford looks washed, which I'm only bringing that up as an example because he absolutely does not. He has
Right.
played very well. That I could even say, yeah, all right, I guess I kind of see it. It's after a full year of listening to every player to a man come up and say, yeah, our effort's just not there all the time, and we're going to fix it. It needs to be better, and we'll fix it. And now to see it's not like that went away with certain players who left the team. Some of the same guys are still here saying the same things that they said a year ago. And I think that's why Horford was so upset, because even though he wasn't here a year ago, he saw and heard those things. And I'm sure he's like, man, this is right back to where it was. And I'm sure he feels some level of responsibility as you said, the disappointed dad, to how do I lead this team towards this correction? I just don't know that it can be him. I think he can be a part of it for sure, but it's, the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Like, the other guys have to drink. They need to be the ones who are doing that.
It makes me wonder if Horford heard something, or the conversation post game in the locker room didn't go the way Horford wanted it to. That's
I wonder that too.
Like if you come out of a loss like that, and the energy, the effort, and Ime said during shoot around, I had questions and told him you're going to get your ass kicked. You go in there, it makes me wonder, and this is pure speculation, pure guess, but judging from his reaction, like that conversation in the locker room afterwards, I feel like had to have some level of almost like flippant attitude. Somebody in that locker room kind of blew this off, and Horford was like pissed off about that, or disappointed in that.
I'm with you.
Yes. But
and we don't know to what John's saying, because although everyone mentioned whatever the heck happened at this shoot around, I don't, was this an Andrew Bynum situation where it was, guys were catching the ball at 90 feet and letting it fly? Like, I don't know what happened. Did, was someone running around with their jock on their head? I really don't know, what went on there. Oh man, sorry if I almost made you spit take.
I almost had coffee, which would have been a great YouTube moment.
But so, and I think that's the disturbing thing, was clearly there were problems earlier in the day, and you hope the message is, hey, you better be ready when you show up at 7:00, or it's going to be a problem. And I look at it too as the Raptors loss is almost easier to take, because they were never going to win that game. They got killed. They got destroyed. This game was winnable, and you kind of threw it all away for a lot of the same reasons, and it was the same stuff. I think Ime Udoka, it's going to go one of two ways now. It's either going to be, it's going to sink in, he's going to get it, and we're going to be looking at this conversation a month or two from now and saying, man, remember when Ime called them all out in October, and now they figured it out and they put it together? Or it's going to be, Ime lost these guys very early on because he called everybody out, because he's not holding back, man. He's letting it fly and calling guys out by name, or very good in the case of Jaylen Brown, when he basically called out his inconsistency, called it mind-boggling. And then he didn't say Jayson Tatum with the hero ball, but you know what he was talking about. I guarantee if we could have followed up and said, what was an example? It would have been that 3-pointer Tatum took when they were down 5 with about a minute left. And he took it with, I want to say there was about 12 seconds left on the shot clock, a very contested deep 3-pointer. And I guarantee that was the play that he was thinking about with that.
We'll be back with more with Keith Smith in the conversation about Marcus Smart. So make sure you're sticking around for that. First, I got to tell you about Built Bar, which is the best tasting protein bar on the market. I just got an email. Once you sign up for their emails, you get all the flavor drops right away. Blueberry muffins, special order. That's why they sent me this packet of blueberry muffin Built Bars, which is delicious, tastes awesome, and at only 150 calories on these, just great for a snack, or if you want to do a meal replacement or have one after the gym, which is what I do. It's great. You get that protein. You get 17 to 18 grams of protein in there. Calories are going to be somewhere up no more than 180, and only 4 or 5 grams of sugar or net carbs. It's just the nutrition there is good, and the flavors are amazing. No matter what type of flavor that you're looking for, fruity or chocolatey or peanut butter or any of that stuff, they have options for you. You got a nut allergy? also have options for you. So check it out. They're the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team and of NASCAR. So you know they're good. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15. Use it every single time. Go back. You don't have to go stock up right now and place a $200 order. Go buy one box, a mixed box. Use Lock15, figure out what you like, then go back. Use Lock15. Every single time you're going to get 15% off at built.com. BetOnline is back and better than ever. They've got a new web interface for the start of basketball season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season, so head on over to the updated desktop or mobile website. Sign up with the promo code LOCKEDON. You'll get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Basketball, football, baseball, the World Series is going on. NHL, boxing, UFC, your favorite Vegas casino games, all at betonline.com. So do not wait. Take advantage of all these amazing offers right now. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks once again for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. You can make your second listen every day, the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast with Josh Lloyd. He will help you win your fantasy league. If you're playing fantasy basketball, he is the best, the absolute best at getting you set up every day for your fantasy basketball team. Check him out wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Now let's get into the Marcus Smart conversation with Keith Smith.
I'm struggling with Marcus Smart, and I've been somebody who has forever said his box score doesn't matter. Don't look at it. It's everything he does is more important than what's in the box score. And there have been moments of that this year, but I think you might have been the one who tweeted it yesterday. Was he started horribly, made a bunch of really good plays in the middle of the game, and then ended really poorly.
Yep.
My thing is, and I'm not going to dispute that at all because I'm in complete agreement with you. My thing with Marcus is it's now to the point where, again, super early, small sample sizes and everything, but he shot poorly last year. And this year, he is shooting god awful. He's shooting 25% from the field. I don't care how much other good stuff you're doing. You can't offset that because that's worse than playing 4-on-5. Because if you're playing 4-on-5, at least all those misses are going to one of the other four. That's worse than 4-on-5 because you're out there causing actual harm to the offense. And I know he hasn't been feeling good. He's talked about that recently and those kind of things. And maybe that's all it is, but something looks really, really off with him to start this season. And that's a major, major red flag for me.
So coming into this season, I'd said, and I said it on the podcast before too, something felt off about Marcus Smart just all along. Like before, like in the preseason at media day, I felt like, again, you cover somebody, you talk to somebody long enough, you feel like you get a sense of who they are, how they are. And I likened it to, you're married, you know what it's like to be around somebody all the time. And then you get a feeling that makes you go, everything all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like that feeling of like, and maybe it's nothing, but you ask the feeling of everything okay? You good? That's the feeling I got from Marcus Smart at the beginning. And now coming into this season and watching him play, he has done a lot of the same things. Like I expected Marcus to be a different type of player this year. As the starting point guard, I expected him to just initiate the offense all the time, most of the time, and work off of that. Well, it turns out that Ime has had Jaylen at the top a lot, Jayson at the top a lot. Schroeder, when he's playing, is handling the ball a lot. Horford, grab and go, setting up the offense. I mean, shit, we saw a Robert Williams, Al Horford pick and roll at the beginning of the game. I was like, what is this? So
they clearly want to run stuff to Rob at the elbows quite a bit too. They're involving him there. Yeah. Yep.
So the initial thought of Marcus Smart as the starting point guard, look, we kind of almost have to throw all of that out. And that includes me saying Marcus is going to be playing differently. Like, got to throw that out. The people who are complaining in my comments on YouTube saying we need a new starting point guard, like, no, you got to throw that out. Marcus is not starting at point guard like other teams are starting point guards. Marcus is basically playing the same role as he was. I will say that he is taking more corner threes than last year. He is changing the shot profile a little bit, but none of those shots are falling. Fine. I'm not worried too much about shots falling. I worry a little bit more with Marcus Smart because, you want to see them fall.
Yeah.
But I feel like that will settle out somehow. Like he's not going to shoot 25% all year. But it's the shot selection that continues to rear its head. Now, in this game, he was bad at the beginning, same old stuff, people complaining. He took 4 3-pointers in the first quarter, I believe, that were questionable at best. One, I think, was okay. 3 of them were like, eh. And then he just stopped shooting. The second and the third quarter, he didn't shoot at all. And it was like, okay, great. So Marcus, credit to him. He's like, okay, I don't have it. I'm going to stop shooting. Great. Focused on playing the defense, focused on moving the ball, threw some nice passes. Great. Perfect. That's the snapshot of Marcus Smart that makes me say, all right, I'll live with some of these misses. And then in the fourth quarter, he gets back to, all of a sudden, he's fouling all the time. He's super, super frustrated with the fouls. He had one drive that I think he almost was like trying to prove a point to the officials, like, watch me drive and not get the call, which he didn't. And then he jacks up a 3 shortly after that. And it's like, oh, Jesus, man. Like I literally just said to somebody either on Twitter or Boston Sports Journal that, hey, look, Marcus started off, I think it was a tough start, but he's been doing pretty well since. And almost as soon as I said that, he does this. And I'm like, well, throw that out the window too.
Yeah.
So it's the roller coaster ride with Smart. And again, just like everybody else, I kind of don't know what's going on. It seems a little off. This isn't your typical Marcus Smart struggle, be great, because we've seen him be great. Like the Charlotte game, the end, the steal and all of that stuff. Great. The timeout that he called to set up the play, which ended up being a tough inbounds pass, super smart, didn't force anything. Awesome.
Yep.
The I know I'm talking a lot right now, but
your show, go ahead.
It feels like, and for people on YouTube, I'm using my hands. The extreme one end and the extreme other end for Marcus Smart used to be like here. And then now it's out here somewhere. He's just expanded out the extremes. It feels like, and I don't know if that's just me or if it's just I'm influenced by how vitriolic the commentary is around Marcus now, but I'm tying in that feeling from the beginning of the season that I just can't figure it out with him, just like I can't figure it out with the rest of the team, that something feels off and I can't figure out what it is with him.
Yeah, I'm with you on the beginning of the season stuff. Clearly, I was not in person for media day, but I was on all of the Zooms throughout the course. And I felt like with Marcus, which leads me to believe he's being completely upfront and honest when he said he wasn't feeling good for a week. And I bet it's been going on even longer than that. Because media day it's silly, it's goofy, it's funny. You get a sense of either guys come in super duper serious and everybody is, we're here to win, it's a business, we're on a mission, blah blah blah, or everybody comes in like, yay, new season, and all the fun that came along with it. Smart was neither. It was almost just like he was like, yeah, season's starting. It really stood out to me when Ime Udoka told us how excited he was about the captain idea. He was, I want to name 2 captains. I think, that's going to be really good for the team. He got asked about it pregame yesterday, and his answer was, yeah, we had a lot of other stuff go on. That's kind of fallen by the wayside because we're focused on other places, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that's not true, and I would never call him a liar, but I think there was also, every player basically was like, whatever, I don't care about that. And it was not everyone's a leader, we're all in this together, we're all here, we're all captains. It was very like, yeah, we don't need captains. Like that was just the attitude about it. And my guess is that probably kind of stung for Ime because you had this thing, you were clearly, ready to institute and go. And I'm guessing he felt like Marcus Smart was going to be one of the ones to jump on board with that. Because we're in probably year 4 of saying he's kind of the unofficial captain of the team. Part of that's just the longevity. He's been here the longest. He's the one who was, here the whole time and all those things. But Yeah, so you had that, and then I just go back to right. I say all the time, and it's one of my go tos on Twitter and go to in my writing is Marcus Smart makes smart plays. Right, he just does. You referenced a couple of them. The problem is when you're consistently putting yourself in the position that you have to have those, and then on the nights when they don't show up, that's a problem. And part of the reason you're in position is because he's shooting 25% from the field. Like
Mm,
that's not, you just can't work around that. That's just terrible. And I 100% back Marcus when he's had that game where he's gone 6 for 6 from three in the first half and he comes down 20 seconds left on the shot clock in transition, pulls up from 40 and lets it fly. Have at it, my man. Those heat checks, I don't have a problem with those
right,
because you know
right,
what? Go. You're feeling it?
right.
Good. Like let one loose. My issue is when it's as you said yesterday, you've missed everything, and then you're pulling up from 40 with 20 seconds left on the clock. Or he had one, it was pretty early on where it was they had pretty nice ball movement going. He could have one more ball reversal, but no, he took it himself instead, and it wasn't even close. And these misses are not close either. These are not down and out misses. These are missing by a lot for him. So I don't know, and I hope this is not a collectively we see this sometimes with guards, especially ones who play like he does. It all physically adds up, and then eventually it's just gone. And then they just don't have that ability. I don't think that's it because I go back to the end of that Hornets game on that strip on that
Mhm.
inbounds at the end of regulation. He became the unscreenable Marcus Smart again. He
Right.
got skinny around two screens, shot that gap so quickly, sprinted right into it. And I wish we had the angle to see Hayward's face because I guarantee Hayward had the oh no, like the
Yeah.
kid in the Christmas story did, right? Oh
Yeah.
fudge, face going on because I think the minute he let it go, he's like, this is
Right.
bad. Like,
Yeah.
how did he get here? And it's one of those where it's one of those plays where it's like Marcus Smart teleported from the baseline to the to half court instantly, and it's so I know it's still in there. I don't know. It's weird because I got asked this on a radio appearance today is what's wrong with this team? And my first answer was, well, how long do you have? And then my second part was, I don't know. And I don't know that anybody has the answers to these questions. There's some stuff that easily stands out and I think will be correctable and fixable and they'll get there. But some of this rest of this, it really is, I don't know, I'm the shrug emoji now.
Right. Yeah. Look, I again, to be fair to Marcus, I think the couple of games where they started Schroeder and Marcus together didn't do Marcus any favors because now he's really playing off ball and he's back to the exact same role that he was in every other year where he's off the ball. And hey, look, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the problem that he comes back, he gets this big extension, and all of a sudden the Celtics signed Dennis Schroeder, and he's like, well, what the hell?
Yep.
Like, maybe he, when he signed the extension, and who knows how contentious those were, because he did say that was, business, and he really kind of like leaned into the it's a business type of thing. So who
Mm-hmm.
knows how tough they got in those talks. I do wonder if so that now they bring in Schroeder again. Now I had a one-on-one with Marcus, and he said like, yeah, I'm the starting point guard. I got drafted. What was he, 6th overall
Yep.
as a point guard, and I come in and they've got Rondo. And they get rid of Rondo and they bring in Jameer Nelson. And they get rid of Jameer Nelson, they bring in Isaiah Thomas. And they get rid of Isaiah Thomas and they bring in Kyrie Irving. And some of that was just circumstances. But from Marcus Smart's perspective, he's like, hey, I'm a point guard. I'm a point guard. Hello,
Mm-hmm.
make me your point guard. And, now Kyrie's gone. They bring in Kemba. Kemba's gone. He's like, finally. And now they bring in Dennis Schroeder. And he's got to be like, what the damn F is going on here? Like,
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's at the heart of this, where he's like, how many different times, how many different ways can I bend my game to fit what you want? And you keep bringing in point guards. And so starting Schroeder alongside Smart just shifts Smart right back into that spot up roll. And when you're at that 2 guard, it's so much easier to float up around above the break where he does not belong shooting threes. He's above the break.
Yep.
3 numbers have just, the numbers have been bad enough long enough where Smart above the break is a crapshoot. Smart in the corner this year, not good, but historically good. Smart in the corner is fine. And that's why I always justified Smart as the point guard, initiating the offense and going and ending up in the corners is okay because he can still spot up and he can still take his threes, but he's actually good at those. Not great, but good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, those 2 games where Smart was, hey, okay, I'm just going to take these 3-pointers because I'm getting these kickouts and he's above the break and he missed those. Well, yeah, of course he missed those. And that's really dragging his number down. I don't think that he's in the right spot. And let's just tie this all up. I think that so much of this is growing pains, but I feel like these growing pains are a little bit more painful than the past. You know, like I feel like these growing pains are almost like, I guess I'll just put it in a, you know, earlier they were the young guys just growing and figuring things out and being awkward. Now we're in these like awkward teenage years of this team. And for people who have, 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are, flooded with hormones as their bodies change. And that's kind of where Tatum and Brown and Smart are as they get 20, 24, 25, 26, 27 years old. That's where they are. They're in that next stage of like, hey, they're just a little bit more angry. They're just a little bit more kind of all over the place, maybe just a little bit more manic, and they're still not completely cohesive because now it's like you said at the beginning, all new personnel, all new coaching staff, all of that. And it's really been a bigger struggle at the beginning of the season than anybody expected. And maybe part of this reaction is our own expectations. We always react against our own expectations. And maybe the team is feeling some of that as well. There's certainly pressure from the outside, not like it was a couple years ago with Kyrie, but there is certainly pressure of like, okay, you guys wanted this new coach. Here he is. And you want to take that step into MVP and all NBA consideration. Well, where is it? And, Marcus is the starting point guard. You wanted this. All right, what are you doing with it? Like, people want a little bit of immediate gratification. And some of this might be unfair, but at the same time, some of it was invited by them. So it's not completely unfair.
No, I'm with you. I mean, all reports were they wanted to be coached hard. Brad Stevens said that. Ime Udoka said that. The players have never directly said it, but they've kind of come out and said, yeah, we want them to hold us accountable and other things.
They said that directly plenty of times.
Yeah. I just don't remember them actually saying like coached hard. Those were because I think we would ask it that way. And then it would be, well, yeah, hold us accountable, make sure we're doing stuff. But it all amounts to the same thing. Well, now you're getting it. So let's see where that goes over the next several weeks here, because I don't think Ime is going to change. I think he's going to keep hitting them with to his thoughts on this. I think too for the team, one of the struggles is, and this was one of the things I called out as a worry I had preseason for Ime Udoka, is it sounds awesome to have 12, 13 legitimate NBA players on your team, until you have to figure out how to get minutes for 12 to 13 legitimate NBA players. And it is way too early. I know too many people are saying, get rid of Josh Richardson. Don't ever play him, blah, 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 blah. I get the frustration because he has not been good. He has really struggled, and especially defensively. So I understand the idea of it. And I even said at one point, like, hey, if he's going to struggle like this, I'd rather have Nesmith out there going through struggles because at least those are developmental struggles. But last night, Peyton Pritchard, first healthy scratch of his career where he didn't get to play. That's tough. And I fully understand why they didn't do it, because I get what he may say. When Schroeder's coming off the bench, it's hard to play Peyton because the two guards together didn't really work. And Pritchard's been the numbers are just brutal when he's in there defensively. They've been really bad early in the season, but small sample size, all the other stuff that goes into that 4 games in for him. But it is the reality is there are about 12 guys who could legitimately see minutes on this roster. And Ime seems pretty locked into he wants to play 9. And I think that grew out of the coaching staffs he's been a part of. The last few years have been, let's play more smaller rotations and really stick with our guys because that's how you get the most out of them. And I think it sounds great to say, where's Nesmith? Where is this? Until then, we're also saying, why is Tatum only playing 30 minutes? Why is Brown only out there for 30 minutes? Well, guys, there's only so many minutes to go around in a basketball game. Not everybody you can't play all your stars 40 and everybody else gets their 25 developmental minutes. It doesn't work that way. That's not it. And by no means am I saying here as we're recording this on October 28th, am I saying it's time to make a decision? Are we, developing or, contending? Because that's foolishness. We're not even to November yet. But that is a worry I have, and that's hard for a new coach. Every single new coach says the single biggest adjustment for them is managing playing time. I've never heard one not say that was a thing. They all feel pretty good strategy-wise with that. Their game management stuff is what struggles is, really, how do we manage through this? And then, throw in the fact that you're working 2 guys back from COVID and, Marcus is not feeling well and all these other things that are going on. It's going to be difficult. So it's funny, despite what I wrote today of seeming very, very negative on the team, and I wrote, and I've been, me, John, I don't do the hot take thing. So when I write something, it's because I truly believe it, is there's a leadership problem. And what I'm worried about is, do they really care that there's a leadership problem? Because nobody wanted to step forward and be a captain, really. Nobody was like, yeah, that's cool, I want to be that. They're not doing the things like we see with a lot of other teams, especially even early in the season where it's, guys are calling guys together and it's, hey, all right, we blew that coverage. Let's figure this out. Here's what we're going to do. Those kind of things. It just doesn't seem to be there. Now it's early on. Some of these guys have played a lot of basketball over the last few years in weird environments and those kind of things. So I get it, but it's just, that's going to be something I'm going to be watching for. I very much hope they get Washington again here in a couple days. I hope they come out and the best thing that would happen is they come out and blow their doors off and look great. And, they're hustling, they're coming up with the rebounds. They're not letting Harold, as I termed it, ragdoll them inside and everything else. Like that would be great. But that's what I'm a little, where's this going to go?
Look, I'll put it this way, that this is, I'll reiterate your point as we wrap this up and say it's because we're having the same conversation that makes this feel so negative.
Yeah.
But it's also truly, honestly, early, and it can be turned around. The Chicago Bulls are the darlings right now at 4-0, and we're recording this before they play the Knicks, and then they play the Jazz, and then they play the Celtics. So the Celtics at 2-3 can go ahead and beat the Wizards and beat the Bulls. And you know what? If that happens and the Bulls lose a couple of those games ahead of time, they're both 4-3.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, all right, never mind. So a lot of this, because we do daily podcasts, or I do a daily podcast, and there's so much content out there. There's always reactions, and that it always leads to overreactions because people are reading so much different content and all of that stuff. It's infuriating to have the same conversation again and again and again, especially when it's controllable. So I'll just leave it at that. Who knows what's going to happen against Washington on Saturday? Hopefully you're right, Keith, and they can go out there with a blowout. Keith, thanks for hopping on for a little bit.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Keith is always great. Really appreciate him stopping by once again. We'll see if they can turn this around. I'm back for you all next week. I'll be at the game in Washington, so hopefully I'll be there to watch them get back on track. And like I said, next week, Chicago, maybe they can get into that 4-3 range with a couple of wins next week. So Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, and the YouTube page. Very important to subscribe to the YouTube page. I really appreciate that. And share the podcast. Tell your friends that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.